Good afternoon, everybody. Today's the 17th of November 2022. And at lunchtime today, we had the autumn statement from the relatively new Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt. Brian, how much money do you think you would have won if you'd put a bet on Jeremy Hunt being Chancellor of the Exchequer and you'd done it 6 months ago?
Yeah, it would have been quite healthy odds, I should think.
So just to introduce ourselves, we're all from Dafferns Chartered Accountants. I'm Martin Gibbs, and with me today, we have Emily-Ball Goldfinch. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Emily is one of our managers in the corporate team in Dafferns. We've also got Brian Jukes, who's our corporate tax partner. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Martin. Hi, Emily.
I mean, maybe just very briefly starting with Brian, what was your immediate takeaway from today's budget? What was your reaction?
Thank goodness that it wasn't too exciting. After the last fiscal event called the mini budget, I just desperately wanted some stability. I wanted to see somebody who looked and sounded like he knew what he was talking about, and that's what we got.
So Emily, yes, what we knew going into this, everybody was going to pay more tax, and certainly there's been some changes on income tax.
Yes, the most notable one is the 45% rate. The additional rate is now payable on all income over £125,141 and up.
Where on earth they got this number from?
I've realised, by the way, why it's 125,140. It came to me while we were talking. You know, there's a removal of the personal allowance when you get over 100,000. Well, that removal runs at the rate of £2 for every one of personal allowance.
Of course.
So if you double the 12,570, you get to 125,140.
And that neatly answers the question that someone raised at lunchtime, actually, when we were talking about the headline points from the budget, and someone asked if that 100,000 taper was going to drop, but that would make sense perfectly as to why it won't.
Emily, do you just want to give us a quick overview of what income tax rates and bands now are from April next year?
Thank you. Yes, so the personal allowance is being frozen at 12,570. So there'll be no tax to pay up to that level, and that's been frozen until April 2028 now. Basic rate band up to £50,270, and then anything above £50,270 up to the new additional rate threshold of £125,000 will be your 40% tax rate, and then 45% on 125,141 and upwards.
And freezing these through to 2028.
It's a very easy stealth tax because we don't see that. There's no immediate effect. It just gradually creeps up on us over the years.
Yeah. And obviously with inflation running at circa 10%, there's a chance that more and more people are going to get dragged into 40% tax simply because their pay goes up, but the tax threshold doesn't.
That's a very important part of this policy.
Yeah. Okay.
And similarly, the national insurance and IHT thresholds have been frozen to that same point as well.
Yep.
So give it a few years and we'll all be paying quite a bit more tax, I think.
Brian, corporation tax. Now, there weren't any real changes in corporation tax in this autumn statement, but it's perhaps just worth just overviewing what the landscape looks like from April next year. Just
so that everybody's aware of where we stand from April 2023, there is going to be a new corporation tax rate of 25%, but that 25% will only apply for so-called large companies. But the threshold at which you become large is profits of only £250,000. So this is going to affect most companies. For the micro companies with profits of less than £50,000, the 19% corporation tax rate we currently have will continue. And then any companies experiencing profits between 50,000 and 250,000, they'll be subject to a marginal rate of corporation tax, which is going to be set at 26.5%.
The other one from a corporate tax perspective, changes with small company research and development.
Yes, this was an interesting thing that was buried within the budget. Probably a lot of people will be totally unfazed by this, won't be interested in this, but for me and for any companies that I advise who are involved in research and development, this was really quite significant. There has been a major recent focus on I think the fact that R&D tax credits has been perceived to be easy money, and therefore it's been described as the Wild West of the tax planning world. There have been a lot of spurious claims, and what they've done today, what they've announced today, is a reduction in the uplift that small and medium-sized entities receive, which was 130%, and now it's coming down to 86%. Not sure where that number's come from, but that's going to make the R&D tax credit somewhat less attractive for SMEs.
The second or third odd number in this budget. Somebody's got a weird calculator somewhere.
I'm sure there is some logic, but I haven't yet spotted what it is. But added to that, if you're an SME who is experiencing losses, then you would be able to surrender your R&D tax credit to get a tax-free payment. And that tax-free payment has been running at the rate of 14.5% of the losses you surrender. That 14.5% is going down to 10%. That's a big cut, making the SME R&D scheme less attractive and therefore hopefully less appealing. The large company scheme, which is called RDEC, has been running at the rate of 13% for a little while. That 13% rate is being increased to 20%. So a big incentive for larger companies to increase their R&D effort.
Other tax stuff in this autumn statement then, Emily?
So the headline point here was that there were going to be some cuts to some of the tax-free exemptions. And in particular, we seem to have targeted CGT and dividends. So the current capital gains tax exemption is £12,300. That's going down to £6,000 from April 2023, and then just £3,000 from April 2024. And the dividend allowance, so the threshold on which you don't pay any tax on your dividends, is currently 2k. That's going down to £1,000 from April 23 and just £500 from April 2024. So they're really cracking down on dividends at the moment.
Brian, when they first introduced the nil rate ban for dividends, it was £5,000, and it was intended to basically take out of the income tax system dividends that the vast majority of people held on relatively small portfolios.
Yeah, it's flying in the face of previous policy, but then we are in difficult times. It's a case of needs must, and this is a way of collecting probably quite a lot of tax, where obviously it's those who can most afford it generally who will be affected. Probably that's even more so when it comes to the capital gains tax annual exemption cut. Capital gains, it's very often those with the broadest shoulders who are experiencing those, and therefore they can take that hit more easily. But really interesting point here, there was an awful lot of talk before the budget about capital gains tax rates being increased, perhaps even being aligned with the current rates of income tax. That's not happened, which I was really quite surprised by.
Emily, the other stealth tax to do with dividends is the 1.25% that was brought in earlier this year to match the social care levy.
Yes, but there's been no word on taking away that extra 1.25% from the dividend rates, has there?
No.
So we're now looking at 8.75% for the basic rate taxpayers. Roll forward a couple of years, if that's on everything over £500, as Brian says, that's going to collect quite a bit more there.
Yeah, there's been so much toing and froing on these tax changes over the last 6 months that you really do lose track. And that is one I think we spotted in September that was still lurking there. Nobody feels sorry for people that receive dividends. Yeah,
that's here to stay. That's here to stay, I would say. From my point of view, I would say I'm quite relieved that it's not been increased. We've still got quite a significant differential between the dividend rate of tax and the standard rate of income tax.
So as we start to wrap up then, anybody that's been watching our video series, Two Accountants Talking About Cars, will know that you'd ordered an electric vehicle. The update on that electric vehicle is you still do not have.
I haven't got it.
But the key thing from today's autumn statement is that your new EV, when it arrives, will not be exempt from vehicle excise duty from 2025. I've got a bit of a smirk on my face as a diesel owner.
It had to come, I think, is my reaction. You cannot run an economy based on electric vehicles all being tax-free. You have to start taxing them. You have to start introducing differential tax rates for electric vehicles to bring them up to a point where you replace what you're losing.
To conclude, one of the big reactions against quasi-Quarteng's mini budget was that it was uncosted and there was no OBR statement to accompany it.
Absolutely. That was the big shock, I think. I think so many people, so many economists and accountants sat through the mini budget and thought, how's he going to pay for this? What are the markets going to do in reaction to this? And sure enough, the markets reacted very badly. This time, the Chancellor has waited, made sure that the OBR have had plenty of time to think through the measures that he's announced today, and they've assessed the impact. So what's going to happen? We're in recession now. They've confirmed that.
There was a slightly more succinct sideswipe almost from Jeremy Hunt while he was positioning the budget in the first place. And he said that growth is a priority, but unfunded tax cuts are as risky as unfunded spending.
Yes,
and that seemed quite
too.
Pointed to me.
It was quite deliberate, I'm sure. Thankfully, the OBR were given time to consider these measures that were announced today, and they've reacted quite well, quite positively. Instead of us having or going into a 2-year recession, they're now predicting it's more likely to be a year and a half, perhaps.
The Chancellor did say that we are in recession, but this autumn statement is designed to rebuild the economy and reduce debt. And I think there's a good chance on balance that he may well achieve that. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
There'll be our usual full coverage of the budget on Dafferns' website. Check it out on dafferns.com. Please like, comment and subscribe. And we will see you again, probably in March next year for yet another budget before the new tax year. But thank you, guys, and see you soon.
Thank you.